Hello and welcome. Over the next several videos, I will be putting together a responsive website, a 4-page website using Photoshop and Dreamweaver Creative Cloud version 2014. So let's see what the final product's going to look like. Like I said, this is going to take several videos, but this is what we're looking for. Responsive simply means that it's going to work on a desktop size, a laptop size, tablet, phone, whatever size screen that it ends up on. It will respond and change to fit that and look better. Okay, so as it gets down to tablet size, it will look like this. It'll jump again to get down to about phone size here. All the content remains the same. The thing that will change is how the content is arranged on the page. Okay, so that's pretty simple. We have a Twitter feed or whatever kind of feed that you want to put in here. We'll go to the About, an About page. There's supposed to be a picture here. I need to fix that. It's Bruce White, and his picture should go there. All of these pages are responsive. They have a different background on each of them. The gallery is basically to show off artwork, so it's kind of a little bit of a light box show for you here. So we have this going on. There's several ways to do responsive web design and several ways to do these JavaScript kind of boxes, light shows, slideshows. So I'm just going to show you one or two tricks. However you'd like to do this, I invite you to explore and try different stuff. Let's see, gallery. I think we're going to also we'll embed a movie. This one is from YouTube. We'll do another one where we actually embed our video directly from the desktop. And then contact information, so we have a form to fill out here, external links to mail that won't get spammed, so I'll show you how to do all that. Okay, let's go back over here to Photoshop, and I start my design in Photoshop, and this is because I work faster in Photoshop. You can start anywhere you want, really. It doesn't matter. But what I can do with this, I have my home page here, my navigation here, which remains consistent, so I have it on a top layer over here. Inside my home layer, I have my background image and then all my content for that, kind of just laid out on top of it. This I can show to the client and say, here's what I'm planning to do for these. There's Bruce. Hi, Bruce. This is what I'm planning to do for the website. And once I have this stuff all kind of laid out, I can show the client. We can make changes before I get into Dreamweaver, and that'll save me some time if there's changes to be made. Okay, so the first thing I need to do, well, let me talk to you a minute about fonts here. I'm using web-safe fonts for the most part for all of this. Web-safe fonts are fonts that should be installed on most of the end users' computers, most of the client-side computers. The thing that's happened recently is that we are able to use web fonts. If I have a font, a specialty font, like this font right here, on my computer, and I use it and I design on the computer, and then I also use that to design on my website, it'll look great when it's on my computer because my computer has that font installed on it, and therefore it will render it on the screen. If I send that out to the World Wide Web and somebody that doesn't have this font, and that would be most people, it will not show up on the screen. It will get some ugly default font. So web fonts, put a little piece of code right at the beginning of your web page that says, hey, go load this font temporarily to the end user's computer so they can view this beautiful font on their screens. And then when they turn the page off, the font disappears. So what you can do for Photoshop is sometimes these things can be downloaded so that you can use them here and on the web. So the first thing I did is I wanted to go find this. I went over, oops, stand by, here we go, to Google Fonts. And I searched, there's lots of fonts, and we're talking, I don't know, 651 families shown right now. So there's a lot to choose from, but there's lots of ways that you can search this. I found one called Alex Brush, and this is it right here. This is the font we were using before. And before I get started, I'll show you how to make this work for the web page, but you can download it right here, and then you can install it and use it on your computer. It's a TrueType font, so it works on PCs and Macs as well. So that's how I got this font to work right here. Anyway, so now what we need to do, let me tell you a little bit about how I work. I work at 100% size, and this is a responsive website, so what is 100%? It's going to shrink, it's going to grow. So I just started with 1,000 pixel width at 72 dpi. I always want to work at size so that I know what the final image is going to look like, instead of scaling it down and having it change on me. So this particular one is 72 dpi. I think it's 960 across and 1,000 pixels down. So whatever website size that you think you're going to use, start with that as your Photoshop file size. Also, you want to work in sRGB, because that's the place to be to get the best color across the board out on the World Wide Web, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, so I want to start picking out the images that I'm going to use. I need to separate them, and that's why I keep everything in layers. If I flatten these things together, then I'm not going to be able to go grab, say, just the logo itself. So make sure you leave these in layers. Don't flatten them down. It makes them much more editable that way. So the first thing I want to do is grab the background images. So I'm going to turn off that. I'm going to go into my home page and turn off the content, leaving just the background image here for me to export. That's interesting. I don't know how that happened. Oh dear. I'm not going to worry about it. So anyway, here's my background image. I'm going to use not just save, but save for web. All right. There is one small problem with this dialog box. You can't see the very bottom down here. I'll tell you what's down there. There's only a couple buttons, so I made it as small as I can. If you've not opened this before, you might just see the optimized version. This is what it's going to look like when it's optimized. And optimized simply means that we're going to make this as small of a file as we can for the web, because all the images that we have, including the background image, have to be downloaded to the end user's computer so that they can be seen on the screen. If those are large images, it may take a long time. The end user may get weary of waiting for them to download and click off to some other place. So I suggest you set this as 2 up. This will be the original, so we can see it see that over here, and then this is going to be the optimized version. For photographs, I recommend JPEGs, and there's some presets here. I'm going to start with JPEG High so that you can see the difference between these two. Not a whole lot going on there. I also want you to work at 100%. Down here I can choose to work closer, but really nobody's going to zoom in that much closer on the artwork, so look at it 100%, and that way you can make a judgment whether the file is good enough. What we're looking for is whenever I use a compression, I have to throw out some data to make that a smaller file. And the more I throw out, the more it degrades the image. So the idea here is to keep the smallest file size I can without degrading the image so far that it's noticeable. So the original is 5 megabytes and some change. The optimized one now that has a quality of 60 is 400K. So a much smaller file already, but I think we can probably do a little better than that. I'm going to zoom in, even though I told you not to, so we can see a little closer what's going on here. I'll use this section of the image right here. When I click on the quality slider and slide it down, the image on this side is showing me the preview. Now those little squares are called compression artifact. Okay, that is the way it's throwing away data. So if I start sliding the quality slider up slowly, those kind of go away. And what I'm looking for is something that looks closer to this original image without a bunch of junk on it. That might have to go farther in some cases, depending on the image that you're trying to use. Okay, so I'm going to go about right there. Let me zoom back down to 100. Okay, and that looks pretty good. The other thing we're going to talk about is, remember I told you to set work in sRGB. Right here I want to leave embed color profile turned off. This will just make a bigger file. Our target is really sRGB anyway, and most popular browsers are set up to deal with that. I want this to say convert to sRGB. Even though it is sRGB to begin with, there won't be any conversion, but it will just make sure that the exported file is sRGB enabled. Okay, and then for preview, set this to Internet Standard RGB, no color management. All right, those things being done, everything else can just be left the way that it is. And then right down here, under this place where you can't see, I'm going to hit the Save button. I am going to save into a folder called Sites. On my desktop, I have a folder called Sites. I keep all my stuff in here. Every site that I'm working on, I have another folder for. In fact, I'll make a new folder just to show you what I'm talking about. So here's a new folder, and we'll call it Site Bob for no apparent reason. I'm going to make another folder inside that one called Images. Alright, all of my images that I'm going to save out, I'm going to put in this folder so I can find them and I can manage them easily. This is background, we'll call it background A, or BGA, okay, since this is the background for my first page, and I'll say OK. Alright, then I will just go along and continue to do that for each of my backgrounds. So I'll close that down, do the About, and so on and so forth until I have all my backgrounds saved. Okay. The next thing I want to save after all that good stuff is my my logo. For the most of my web page, I'm going to create these bars, this background, all this text, all this text. This is all going to be created in Dreamweaver over again. So there's no reason for me to select these things and try to save them. If I did, they'd be raster images anyway. So I'm just going to get the things that I can't really recreate in the raster world, like Bruce's picture, like this, in Dreamweaver, like this guy right here. So I'm going to turn everything off except for that logo, and that would be this and that. There we go. The checkers just simply mean transparency. Okay, there we go. So I want the logo and the drop shadow to go, which means I have transparency. I don't want to save this image as big as it is because it's the size of the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily crop it, and then I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to uncrop it. I want to make sure that inside my crop I get all of the image and not cut off any of the drop shadow. Alright, so I'm going to move it about here, and I'm just going to hit return. Then I'm going to do my save for web, file, save for web, and in this case it's pretty simple. This is before and after. I want to switch this to a ping 24. Ping 24 understands transparency. Okay, I turn transparency on, and now I have transparency down here. Not a lot of other stuff I can do, so I'm just going to go ahead and say save. And when I do, it will have the suffix a PNG, and we'll call this one logo. I never use capital letters when I'm doing web work. I will explain that in another movie, and then I'll just say save. Okay, now I can use the history palette to bring this back to what it looked like when I first started, and everything is back where it was again. Okay, and I'll do the same thing for Bruce's image. I'll make a selection of it and save it for web. And that's about all I need out of this section. You may need more stuff out of yours. So I'm going to show you one more way to do all of this a different way. If you have your layers, have the individual elements that you're going to export out of Photoshop on their own layers, and you know approximately what the compression is that you want to use, then you can just name that layer or a folder with that content, and it'll save it out that way. So like these backgrounds, even though this is several pieces that put the background together, I'm going to rename the folder to what I want it to be saved as. So this is just going to save this one background. This is going to be BG1. I want it to be a JPEG, so .jpg, and I want the compression to be about 40%, so 40%, and that tells it I want a compression of 40. It's going to save it as a JPEG. If I wanted to reduce the image on the way out, if it was too big, I could say 50% here, and it would size it down 50% and then apply a 40% JPEG compression to it. Alright, I've already renamed the other backgrounds. Let's come up here to the logo, which is right here, another folder, and I'm just going to rename it logo.png because I want it to be transparent. Alright, and let's see, there's Bruce here on the About page. Layer 35 will be Bruce. No special characters, no spaces, remember. JPEG. And 60% for Bruce, so he'll look better than the background. Alright, so once I do all this stuff, I'm going to go out here and show you where I'm working. Oh dear. I'm going to get rid of that. That's the one from my test. So here's the file that I'm working in. What's going to happen is it will create a new folder right next to this one with the same name and then -assets. And we'll put all those assets that I just named inside of my Photoshop file in there. Okay, and right now you're going to go to generate, and it's already turned on because I already had that folder there, so ignore that. Come here, generate image assets, happens pretty quick, and there they are. Okay, so there's my logo that's a PNG. These are all JPEGs. I'll name the right thing. I'm going to move this over here so I can show you one more thing. As long as this folder and this Photoshop file remain in this same level, I can make changes here and they will be updated here, just like magic. So let's go back to the Photoshop file and say I want to change the logo color to this lovely color here. I say okay. If I come out here, you'll watch it change just like magic. Okay, now you don't really want to upload this Photoshop file to the remote web server. So in Dreamweaver, we can cloak this so it doesn't get copied up. But that's a pretty cool way to do this. If you know what you're doing and you're pretty good at knowing what compression to use, then this would be another way to do that. Now I have the, remember it has an art gallery, and in my art gallery I have thumbnails here, and I also have larger pieces of artwork here. So I want to save the artwork at this size, and then again at this smaller size for the thumbnails. That's what I'm going to do next. So I have set up my artwork all in the same size file, and we're looking at it at 100%, which is 634 pixels by 371 pixels. I have all my artwork set up in that same aspect ratio, in that same format. You do not have to do this for yours because those slideshow lightbox windows will accommodate if you have a portrait, if you have a landscape shot, if you have a square one, it'll form to fit the picture and optimize it. So you don't have to do it this way. This is just the way that I prefer to do it for these images. So what I have here is I've just made one file, and I have a different layer for each of my large artwork images. Okay, so as I save them out, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll start down here, I'll say save for web, and I'll go through that process. As I name them, I want to name them something that will be simple, that I can find when I want to drop this into my design project. So I may use F, E, D, and these may be art, and the other ones may be the corresponding thumbnails, may be F thumbnail, E thumbnail. You get the idea. So here's the thumbnails. And the way I make the thumbnails is I don't use the whole image. If I use the whole image and try to squish the whole image down here, let me just show you. I'll grab that, copy it, and come back over here. And I paste it. If I try to squeeze this whole image down to fit in that box, it's going to be a lot of small detail that I'm not going to be able to really make out. So instead of doing that, I may leave it 100% or find some interesting spot on the image to represent the image, and then just say that's going to be my thumbnail for that image. Okay, that makes sense? I hope so. All right. Again, I will save these with Save for Web. Everything that we save out of Photoshop is Save for Web. Illustrator is the same way, Save for Web. Okay? And I'll get all these things put into my images folder, which we shall go and talk about right now. On my desktop, I have a sites folder, like I said. I have all of my the current websites that I'm working on all represented in here. And to get one started, a new one started, all I really do is set up a couple of folders. One is a workers folder. So those Photoshop files that I was just working on, my thumbnails file, my website file, and my art file are all in here, along with all the text. This is a Word document for all the text that's going to be going into the website. Maybe you get it from the client, they email it to you, or whatever. But all the assets that don't need to be uploaded to make the website work, I'll put in a workers folder with an underscore. That little underscore just tells me this is not going to be uploaded for the to the remote server, but these are the parts that help me make this website. So if I come back to work on this website again to update it a year from now, I'll have all my original working material, and I won't have to go wonder where I left it. Okay, so here's all my images. Have all been exported here. There's Bruce, my thumbnail, my full-size image, and so on and so forth. And you can see that how I named them. Art C thumb, Art C, Art D thumb, Art D. You get the picture. Here's my background images, which are big, and the logo, which will be transparent. Okay, so what else do we need to do? I talked about that, remote server. Okay, I think we're ready. Come back and we'll start with Dreamweaver. See you then.